guys, so just giving you a quick rundown of what we've done so far. We've gone ahead and removed the hangers at the back, hanger at the front. You'll have to get these 4 12mm bolts or nuts here at the front of the exhaust, 2 E10s here at the middle. There is a brace that you'll remove, and then you've got these rear forward, they're kind of like the rear forward mounts, and then the all the way in the rear mounts and the electrical connector. Everything is held on with 13mm nuts. Make sure to use a pull stand or something to hold it in place. All right guys, with the exhaust removed, we can see the shifter much better. You do also have to remove the heat shields, which are in the way. There are 2 E10 bolts that hold the rear mount in place, and then there are some C-clips that hold the shift selector rod in place as well, and you'll pull all that out. Here we have the RTD shifter. It does come with a nice sticker. There is a hole to grease the shifter right here. It says to put the lithium grease there through the back. Show you the overall construction. It's a very nice TIG welded, laser cut, base plate with heavy duty spring and all billet construction. There's a nice colored shifter knob of your choice. You get to choose the color you want or material. There's also a set screw for the, basically anti-reverse collar, which doesn't exist on this model, but they put it there just for looks. Here we have the DSSR, the dual shift selector rod, which really makes the shifting feel so much better. Without this piece, the car would still kind of not shift as good as it could. This piece really takes a lot of the play out of the shifting and is a wonderful addition to the shifter. It's actually needed with the shifter, but here we have the hardware, which holds the sandwich plates in place. This is a very nice construction with an incorporated seal. This is much better than other shifters on the market like Garagistic, where they don't have a sandwich plate and can tear through the floor pan of the car. So something that a lot of people probably don't talk about, but it is very needed when you're racing and pushing the car hard and shifting gears hard. So overall, we love RTD and their shifters. We've been using them for years and I highly recommend the product. Here we have the shifter out. You can see the hole into kind of the transmission area and the actual shift fork or shift selector rod, whatever you want to call it, assembly still in place. We're going to be removing that. You do have to remove the cup holders and the CIC button, as well as the buttons for your EDC and the collar around the shifter boot. So you can take the shifter boot off. As you can see here, there's also electrical plug to the car, so make sure to get all that. Be careful not to break anything. Everything is just basically held in with pop clips, and we'll just pull up with gentle prying. Here you can see the spots where like the plastic detents reside for the factory shifter bushing. It's a plastic bushing and it actually just twists out of place, but you can also just push from the sides. All right, we're just taking the car up so we can get the shifter assembly out and get the new DSSR installed and the shifter sandwich plates also tightened up. All right guys, just to get a little bit more access to tighten the sandwich plate, we're gonna go ahead and drop the transmission a bit. We've got a pull stand in place. We're just removing the 4 13mm bolts that hold the transmission cross member to the body. With that removed, you can see the transmission comes down and gives us just a little bit more room to get the shifter assembly out of place and get the new sandwich plates installed. As you can see, it's quite a tight fit. So here you can see the factory shifter bushing with the little tabs that pop out of the factory shifter assembly. All this stuff is going to be junk unless you're really trying to save it for reinstallation, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Do your best to not damage it, but if it does get damaged, everything can be replaced. Here guys, you can see we are working on getting the diff bushings removed from the car. We're going to go ahead and lower the subframe down just a bit here to get that rear bolt out and get that rearward bushing replaced. All right guys, here you can see the difference between the Turner dual diff mount and the factory diff brace. The The awesome part about the Turner kit is it does come with all new hardware to mount it to your diff. We opted to do 2 factory competition bushings. Normally I go with the full ECS bushing kit, but this time I went with the factory competition bushing, which is a 33179503900 900 part number. They are directional. You do want to put the side that kind of is the male, what I would call the male side, that has the longer side coming off of it. That side you want to put towards the diff, and the basically flat side towards the back of the car. As you can see here, there's the additional mount for the secondary diff bushing, which there's a provision in the subframe for, which is one of the awesome things about the F80 and G80 platforms and subframes. The G80 also utilizes the same subframe as the F80, which is awesome, so the process will be the same for you G8X guys. Over on the car, Morgan's going ahead and burning the bushing out of the car already. He's gonna go ahead and lower the subframe down here in a bit as well. Another hack actually is if that bushing does get hot enough, you can technically flex it and pull the bolt out. You just have to be careful to reinstall the new bushing with the bolt already in. All right guys, we're in the car installing the shifter now. We've removed the center console. We're just tightening up all the sandwich plates. You can probably do it with the center console in place once you cut it, but it's easier in our opinion to just remove it completely. We'll show you why here in a bit. We've gone ahead and installed our seal plate first, then the actual shifter and the bolts and washers from the top side, and then Morgan's down below. Putting in the nuts and the base plate from the bottom side, or sandwich plate. That's all been put in and tight. We need to torque it still, but we're just doing a feel. And the shifter definitely feels very nice. It's a little noisy, different. It's like so different sounding compared to my E92. And I think that's partially because it's sandwiching the chassis versus on the E92 it's actually bolted to the chassis. So there's some weird kind of noise vibration that we're hearing from that, but we're going to tighten it down some more, see what happens there, as well as when the engine's running, if you can even notice that. That may be because there's no noise here in the car and all of the center console stuff is removed, but we'll see. Let's keep tightening these down and then get this thing going. All right guys, after getting everything completely snug, feels much better. It's very loud, much louder than it is in my E92, but like I said, maybe that's due to the center console being missing. Feels amazing. Really like the orange shifter with the orange paint. It's a nice feel. Anyways, let's go ahead and show you what it looks like from below. Here's a quick look from above. You can just barely see the bolts peeking through here. But yeah, check it out from below. All right guys, here's a quick look of the DSSR and the sandwich plate installed. You can see the nut spacing down with the lock washer and the big washer on the underside. We've gone ahead and torqued these down to like 35 foot-pounds, roughly. And the DSSR has been greased. It's been clipped in on both sides. You can see the clip here, you can see the grease, both sides. So you guys can see that up there. It's hard to see. It's been in clipped. We're gonna go ahead and tighten our transmission cross member here. I believe it's 18 foot-pounds or 21 foot-pounds. Go ahead and torque that. We'll put our heat shield back in. We are still working on the diff bushings, so we'll wrap that up and then we'll go ahead and take this thing for a test drive. All right guys, here's a quick look of the center console cut. You cut it right here and right here. We actually could have cut a little bit more off of this side, but it's just fine. You kind of want to leave as much as possible to give reinforcement for the bolts that go in here. All is well with that. The wiring is routed as it should be. We're just gonna put in our front bolts here, across the front here, and then pop the trim panels back in and the switches. We'll probably end up just cutting the boot here, which I may do right now. Just get this knob off the leather section and put this over it. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that real quick. I had to get this tool here from Milway, which is kind of like a cone tool, which reduces the size of the bushing to get it in the hole. As you can see, we've already got one installed. We've got the subframe dropped down just a little bit so that we can get these in. The coolest part about this, it's got this lip here, which locks on and registers here to the subframe pocket. and you can basically just tap the bushing in from here. We put a little grease in the tool and a little grease in the hole to help it. But yeah, that's how we're getting these competition bushings in. So let's go ahead and get that in and then get our Turner dual diff mount on the diff and everything back in the car and torque. All right guys, we've got the Turner dual diff mount on. It was actually able to slip over the top of the subframe here. And with this section being thinner down here, it actually just dropped right through. So we've got that in with the new hardware. We're about to torque that down to 120 Newton meters. And then we'll go ahead and get this thing bolted up with our new competition bushings installed. So let's get it. Everything is completely buttoned up as far as the diff bushings go and the subframe. Everything's been torqued. The diff bushings here in the back. The left side one is 220 Newton meters. The right side is 120. The mounts itself, I believe, are 120 as well. Exhaust is in, heat shield. Subframe's 108. These guys here up in the front, I believe, are 79. To the chassis here on the outside is 56 Newton meters plus 60 degrees. These are 24 Newton meters. And the big guy out here is like 175. Everything's been torqued. All the arms we checked and have been torqued. Everything's like 100 Newton meters, basically, except for these inner and outer pivots, which are 165. Yeah, exhaust is in. Obviously the shifter is done. The heat shields are in, so you can't see any of that stuff now. But we're gonna go ahead and take this thing for a rip and let you guys know how it feels. Super excited to see how this thing feels. I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. So let's go ahead and get to it and stop talking about it. First impressions here, this RTD feels super stiff, like stiffer than I think mine ever did. And I think the reason for this feeling so stiff is that it's the mini lever and I have the race lever, so with the extra leverage it's actually quite a bit softer feeling, but this thing feels really tight, which I like. Also very notchy, which I don't know if you guys can hear that, but super notchy, super noisy. I do love it though. It makes me feel like I'm in a race car. It's very affirmative on the shifts, you know. That's one of my favorite things about doing a chassis mounted shifter, is it's just so rigid when it comes to the way the shifts feel. Still a little crunchy going into second. Second gear is always weird on these trannies for some reason. See how third feels? Snaps right to center and it feels pretty good. Let's check out fourth gear. And man, is it noisy. Thing's loud. One thing that I can tell is with that dual diff mount, when you're releasing the clutch, it's quite a bit more responsive, I guess. You know, you get no play in the drivetrain, so as soon as you start releasing the clutch, you feel it. And then you also used to get like, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Get a little noise coming from the clutch right when it starts to grab, and that used to be much worse with the factory bushing because the whole drivetrain is kind of slopping back and forth, and you're hearing that additional noise in the drivetrain there. So that's something that's definitely improved. It seems quite a bit tighter and just quieter overall when you're shifting through the gears, other than the additional noise from the RTD short shifter, but very nice. This thing here in sport mode. We're still waiting for the car to come up to temperature, so we can't make some quicker shifts here. Man, going to like, you know, first gear or fifth gear when you have to push it to the side, it's quite difficult. Third and fourth are always the best because it falls center. Second was pretty nice there going back from third, and the diff bushings are just make the car feel like how it should. No additional NVH with just those rear competition bushings. It's basically like factory, except for the fact that we have two bushings instead of one. But yeah, very nice. Power response comes on nicely, and you get a little less slop, you know, when you chop throttle. So that's very nice. First impressions though, big benefit. I always hated, I'm kind of almost regretting now selling my M2 competition in a 6-speed, because I always hated the first, second gear shifts, but this RTD kind of solves it. And with like a UCP clutch pedal, this thing would be perfect. I guess the biggest thing with the manual is the gear ratios just on the freeway. When you're in 6th gear, it's kind of not high enough. But on the street as a daily driver, you know, it's great. So nice now with the shifter. Oh, these RTD shifters are just something else. Ripping. I love when mods just make a car like that much better. This was really a necessary mod. If you own a 6-speed F80 car and are unhappy with the way that it shifts, you need to think about an RTD or a CE shifter. Now the worst part is this first and second, so let's see. Not bad. Not bad. Usually when you get to redline in these cars in 1st gear and you try to bang shift 1st and 2nd, it's gonna lock you out of 2nd gear. I was still able to shift to 2nd gear. I definitely hesitated just a little bit, but nothing you couldn't get used to and nothing that isn't overcomable. It's definitely a million times better than it was. The biggest issue with these manual cars, which can be tuned out, is the fact that it drops boost when you shift, so getting that tuned out to be flat foot shifted would be really nice. Honestly, the diff bushings feel really tight. It feels kind of like when you upgrade to polys, but maybe just slightly less rigid. Like there's a little bit of give you can still tell back there, which is nice because the car feels OEM. And honestly, if you were to drive a complete stock car and got in this car, you know, minus the shifter, you would not know the difference. Maybe some of you that are super in tune would like pick up on the slight difference, but it just feels like it should. Yeah guys, 100,000% improvement. Super hyped on the shifter after just ripping through some gears and really thinking about it. This is a necessary mod. If you own an F80 car, you should be thinking about getting one of these shifters. I'm not just saying that. After owning 2 manual F-Series cars, it's always been a drag of mine, kind of the first, second shift, and this completely eliminates all of that issue. Super hyped. Hopefully you guys liked this video. The diff bushings were also a massive upgrade. I mean, you guys have probably heard about it. If you know anything about this chassis, it's a super big problem. And just doing those 2 diff bushings with the competition bushing drastically improved the way this car feels, shifts gears, on and off power supply, and just overall driving characteristics. So yeah, you should definitely think about doing some diff bushings, and you should definitely consider an RTD short shifter. So hopefully you guys like this video. We're gonna go ahead and end this here. Make sure to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. If you like this video, be sure to check out the next one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe and like the video. It helps a lot. Thanks, and see you in the next one.